Hello students, I am Raghunanda working as an assistant professor of physics. In this session we are going to learn about reversible and irreversible processes, which is one of the subtopic in the chapter laws of thermodynamics. First of all, let us know about the reversible process. So reversible process is a thermodynamic process which can be retraced in the opposite direction so that the working substance passes exactly through the same stages as it does in the direct process. Means here in a reversible process the system can go exactly through the same stages in the opposite direction also. The most common example for a reversible process is water when it is freezed will become ice, but when the ice is heated again it will become water. Now let us know about the characteristics of reversible process. Slow process going through smaller stages, so that will be the characteristic of reversible process. Means the reversible processes are the slow happening processes, and in this process always the equilibrium is maintained between the system and surrounding, and it can be made to move in forward as well as in the reverse direction. Next characteristic is driving force is very small. Now what is driving force here? Driving force is the force responsible for the process. Say for example expansion of gas is there. So the force which is responsible for the expansion of gas is called as the driving force. So as the process is happening very slowly, so the driving force is very small here. In a reversible process, the work done in this process is greater than that in the irreversible process. So as the process happens very slowly, the system is needed to be done more work than in the irreversible process. The system is brought back to the initial state without making changes in the adjacent surrounding. So while during this process also it will always maintain the equilibrium with the surroundings, and it will not make any changes during the process, direct process as well as in the reverse process. Next, what are the examples of a reversible process? Slow extension and contraction of suspended spring is an example for a reversible process. When the string is extended and left, it will come back to its original shape after some time. Carnot cycle is also a very good example for a reversible process. Very slow evaporation and condensation are also the examples of reversible process. All the isothermal and adiabatic processes are reversible if they are performed very slowly. And one more thing we need to remember is when the process happens very slowly such that it maintains equilibrium with the surroundings, then such a process is also called as quasi-static process. Means all the quasi-static processes are reversible in nature. The system should be in mechanical and thermal equilibrium and chemical equilibrium with the surroundings. Then only we can call it as a reversible process. So this is one of the condition for reversibility. So the process should go very slow. Dissipative forces means the forces which are absorbed, so they are called as dissipative forces, such as friction, viscosity. Means they will get lost, means the energy loss will be occurred in such cases. So such a forces are called as dissipative forces, such as friction, viscosity, inelasticity, etc. should be absent. Then only the process would be reversible. Now, most of the processes in nature which are occurring spontaneously and on their own, they are all irreversible in nature. Now, how to define irreversible process? It is the thermodynamic process which cannot be retraced in the reverse direction. So such a process is called as an irreversible process. So with a good example we can explain the irreversible process. That is, here you can see a container which consists of two chambers. In one of the chamber gas is filled and in another vacuum is there. If a small opening between them is opened, then what happens? All the gas will get expand and accumulate in the vacuum chamber, but the reverse is not possible here. So such a process is called as an irreversible process. Now, what are the characteristics of irreversible process? So it attains the final state rapidly. Any process which happens spontaneously and rapidly is an irreversible process. There is no equilibrium between the system and surroundings. So all the characteristics of irreversible process are observed to be exactly opposite to that of the reversible process. So in reversible process there will be always an equilibrium between the system and surroundings. But in case of irreversible process there is no equilibrium between the system and surrounding, and it takes place in one direction only. So in a reversible process that takes place in forward as well as backward direction, but irreversible process takes place only in one direction. So the driving force here is more, means rapid expansion, spontaneous processes. In these cases the driving force is much more and work done is very less, means without any effort this process happens. With a small effort this process happens, so work done is less in the irreversible process. The system is brought back to the initial state, so it cannot be retraced back in the initial state, but if at all it is brought back, it will make so much of changes in its surroundings. So these are all some of the characteristics of irreversible processes. Some more examples for irreversible processes are all the natural processes such as conduction, radiation, radioactive decay. So these are all irreversible processes that will not happen. If once the radioactive decay takes place from the nucleus, it will not get come back to the nucleus again, isn't it? And the process of radiation, the radiation which is emitted by the source of radiation, it will not get retraced. The conduction process is also an irreversible process. Heat production in an electric heater, it is also lost, isn't it? Lost in the nature, lost in the environment. So it is also an irreversible process. Heat loss due to friction, chemical reaction, growth of a plant, all these are the good examples for irreversible process. Now, what is the significance of irreversibility? So from the irreversibility principle we can define the second law of thermodynamics. So the spontaneous flow of heat will always be from the body of higher temperature to the body at lower temperature, and the reverse is not possible. The heat can never flow from the body of lower temperature to the body of higher temperature. There will always be a heat flow from the body of higher temperature to the body of lower temperature. So that is how the irreversibility process will define the second law of thermodynamics. Now students, what we have learnt in this session, we have learnt what is meant by a reversible process, what are the characteristics of a reversible process, what are the conditions and examples for reversible process. We also came to know about irreversible processes, their characteristics and examples. Thank you.